I mean, there is kinetic war, which is people shooting and fighting each other, and then there is sanctions war, which is economic war, which is what we're seeing. And the one is every bit as devastating and debilitating as a kinetic war is. It just is more insidious and takes longer.
All right, Gonzalo, how are you? We're going. The floor is
It's,
yours. You got. We're going to do a hard stop in like 10, 15 minutes, but I don't
yeah,
know if you were listening in and heard what
yeah.
we were saying, and you want to weigh in on what's going on. First, how are you? How are things?
I'm doing very well, and to tell you the truth, thank you very much for having me on. Because to tell you the truth, and I don't mean to belittle anything or anyone or anything, but it's such a welcome distraction to be on your show because I'm climbing the walls here in my hotel room because the authorities here in Kiev have declared a full curfew from yesterday Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. until Monday at 8 a.m. And so I'm like stuck here in my hotel, and I'm just going a little bit stir crazy. And so being on your show is a very, very welcome distraction. And by the way, I saw Alexander your show yesterday, and you spoke so kindly about me, and I want to thank you very much. That was so
Mm.
kind of you to say those such nice things about me. And
Fully,
so
full. Well, I mean, I'm grateful for everything that you're
Well,
doing, Gonzalo. But let's
Gonzalo, yeah, we want to hear your thoughts on everything that's happening with the sanctions and the
yeah.
Russian central bank and SWIFT. What are your thoughts?
Well, before I get into that, I'd like to give a quick military update.
Yes.
I am not a
yeah.
military man, so I do not know the weapons and strategies and whatnot. I understand the generalities, but the specifics are beyond me. But what I do know, and this is factual, not only because of video evidence, but because of firsthand accounts that I have heard from people in Kharkov, which is the second largest city in Ukraine, which is in eastern Ukraine. Russian soldiers have penetrated into the center of the city, and there is small arms combat going on in the center of the city. And so we are on day 4 of this invasion. It started Thursday in the early morning hours, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and here we are Sunday. On day 4, they are entering the city. They have it pretty much cut off from the rest of Ukraine. And this seems to be the overall strategy of the Russians. The Russian army seems intent on first surround and cut off, and then slowly advance and take over. And this is the strategy that they've used in smaller towns and cities that presented some slight resistance. And it seems to be what they are doing in Kharkov, and it seems to be what they are doing now in Kiev, where I am located at this time. In Kiev, the northwestern or northwestern, I forget the exact coordinate, road that leads into Kiev has been interdicted by the Russian army. They control it. And so, as I understand, there's only a single road that might be left, the straight eastward road. I forget the number of it right now, but it's not important. You can look at a map. And so the Russians are slowly encircling Kiev. I am here in the center of Kiev, and there is just very, very distantly an occasional rumble. It sounds like distant thunder, but very, very once in a while, maybe once an hour, once every 2 hours. But other than that, there's no noise going on. And since there's a complete curfew, stick your head out any window and it's crystal clear. So you can't hear any kind of fighting. And the word that I'm getting from people here is that the Russians consistently come up against a group of Ukrainian defenders. They exchange small arms fire, and then they retreat. And that has been their consistent strategy, or tactic, rather. Now, some other people are basically saying, and this seems to be the general agreement, that Russia is surrounding all the major cities and just waiting them out. What has happened in Kharkov, where I live, and of course I have a number of sources that are firsthand, and they have told me that the soldiers are just taking over the city. And it seems clear that Kharkov will probably be completely in Russian hands within, certainly within another 4 days, just to be very conservative about it. But there seems to be no possibility of reinforcements for the Ukrainian forces in Kharkov. They've been completely surrounded. The other word I'm getting is that the Russians have taken Zaporozhye, and that they are well on their way to Dnipro. Dnipro is the third largest city in Ukraine, and it is dead center in the country. When you look at the map, just look dead center, right on the river. That's Dnipro. It used to be called Dnipropetrovsk, and it seems that that city will be reached by the Russian army within the next 48 hours to 72 hours. And again, the same kind of tactic. It's very weird to be on Twitter and to be on the various social media platforms. I am not on Facebook. That's the one platform I just refuse. I just don't like it. But all the other platforms I see, they keep saying that the Russians are losing, that they're not reaching their objectives. And I look at the map, I look at the number of hours since this started, and where they are located, and this is definitively located. This video evidence, and it's very clear that it's the Russian forces, and the little landmarks are of these towns or cities or whatnot. And like I said, in Kharkov, it's firsthand accounts of people who are there, who see them out the window. Okay. And so my thinking is that the people on Twitter, the people on social media, they're delusional. I do not know what they are, because they are swallowing nonsense and they're spewing out nonsense. The Russians have advanced. And here's something else that seems to be increasingly clear. The soldiers that they are using, from various accounts, they are very green and they're very ill-equipped. And it's a known fact that the Russians have a great deal of first-class weaponry, state-of-the-art tanks and self-propelled guns and what have you. And so my thinking is it's becoming increasingly clear that the Russian army flung out the second tier of their army, quite frankly, as cannon fodder. And now that operation is ongoing, it seems clear that the top tier of men and materiel are being held back, I would think, for two reasons, two possibilities. Number one, the top tier soldiers are going to be much more disciplined, and therefore they would be a perfect occupation army, because they will be disciplined and therefore they will not abuse the citizenry, on the one hand. And on the other hand, this top tier army, it'll be fresh and ready to go if, and this is a big if NATO or some NATO country or the United States does something very rash and foolish. And so that seems to be the state of play at this moment. The other thing that's very apparent is that the Russians are completely ignoring Western Ukraine, that they do control the skies. And I'm going to get to the issue of air superiority in just a moment. But insofar as the land war, they seem to be just ignoring Western Ukraine, Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk and the other Ternopil. I can never pronounce the name, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The cities out in the west that are close to Poland and the border with Poland and the border with Hungary, the refugees are going there. The lines are catastrophic. I got notice that the line for the cars to cross, where do I have that list? I have it actually right here. the wait time for cars, I'll tell you now, is between 20 and 44 hours of wait time to cross the border into Poland if you're going by car. If you're going by foot as a regular civilian, it's at least 10 to 15 hours wait time to be processed and crossed into Poland. And it's chaotic but peaceful. So, it's like just a lot of people wanting to cross in, but no panic going on, because of course Western Ukraine is completely free of any kind of a Russian military aggression. But the center of the country and the east of the country is rapidly being taken over. And there's something else too that I think is very interesting. I mentioned before that this first wave seems to be of the greener elements, clearly stiffened by more experienced soldiers. But the bulk of the army that is advancing initially is greener. And they are, as I said, it seems to be kind of like cannon fodder, because the Russians are known to have elite soldiers, elite tank battalions with state-of-the-art tanks. And the tanks that we are seeing are old. They are from the beginning of the century, and some of them from the turn of the last century. So these are old tanks. I could not tell you the makes, but there's enough video evidence to show that these are older tanks. And it seems that they were deployed specifically as, cannon fodder. And what's interesting is that in the Lugansk and Donetsk, where the battle is raging there, the people who are at the front are elements of the People's Republic Army of Lugansk and Donetsk, which I think is very interesting. You can draw whatever conclusions you will from that, but it is very apparent that those initial troops from those eastern regions are not Russian soldiers. They're the LDPR or whatever it's called, and the DLPR that are being used to move forward, which I think is very interesting. And I'll leave it at that. There's some other issue. Oh, air superiority. There are some commentators on Twitter that seem to be saying that Russia doesn't control the air. That's bizarre. They do. I mean, it's very obvious. And they keep saying that the Ukrainians have the equivalent of, Warthog anti-tank aircraft and such that are strafing the Russians. I don't really believe that. I think that it's propaganda, and I'll explain why. The Russians have had 4 days over Ukraine, and they have the aircraft to cover the entire country. So any runway is either destroyed or in their hands, or in the process of being in their hands. Now, if it's destroyed, it's inoperable by Ukraine. If it's in the hands of the Russians, it's obviously inoperable by Ukraine. And if it's in the process of being taken by the Russians, you would never fly an aircraft out of there because it would be shot down by the surrounding forces. So I don't believe these accounts. They just seem, they don't square with the known facts at this time. Okay, I just have to say that. And this, it's very odd. Even people who are very level-headed seem to have this very bizarre notion that the Russians are somehow losing. They're not. I mean, it's really clear that they are advancing consistently. And like I said, the accounts of Kharkov are first-hand accounts of multiple sources. Okay, people that I know, that I'm related to in some cases. Okay, so it's not just hearsay. So I find the commentary in the West extremely bizarre. Okay, so that's my my prescience insofar as the military is concerned.
Thank you very much for that, all, Gonzalo. That's extremely useful.
Yeah, and insofar as the sanctions are concerned, yes, I heard that they are going to disconnect from SWIFT several of the banks, but it was already known that these banks were sort of like in the doghouse insofar as the EU is concerned. But I think that they are going to get a little bit carried away and wind up actually disconnecting Russia from SWIFT. And I don't think that they've realized that this is going to hurt them, because the Russians can simply say, okay, then we'll just cut off your gas. I mean, if you're not going to pay us, and the only way to pay us is, by being on SWIFT, and if you're going to steal the foreign currency reserves we have on deposit with your central bank from our central bank, then we'll just cut off your gas and we'll cut off your petroleum. And now that we control Ukraine, or at least can interdict any trade from Ukraine to Europe, we're going to cut off your grain too. What are you going to do about them? And I think that the Europeans have not thought through this hysteria, this self-generated hysteria that is driving them off a cliff. Because if I'm Putin or part of that class and the Europeans get this hysterical, I say, then I'll just shut off the oxygen tube for you and see how you survive without it. Because they need the gas, they need the oil, and they need the food. And so I don't understand what these people are doing in Europe, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. I'm afraid I have to go.
Yeah, well, that's.
Can I just say, Gonzalo, I agree with you. We'll see what the Russian response is going to be. But taking a step like seizing central bank reserves is an incredible one. It's never been done on anything like this scale. I don't know how much money is involved, because I don't know how much money the Russians keep abroad. But I think you're absolutely right. They're going to start taking countermeasures, and they're, of course, going to start taking steps to protect their own economy domestically, which is what we were discussing, Alex and I, before the start of this program. I think that the Europeans have been swept along on a wave of hysteria. And you know what they say, if you make decisions in anger, then they're repented at leisure. And I think these are going to be very repented.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bizarre to see this. The things that the Europeans themselves said they would not do, the things their banks advised them against doing, they're now doing because they can't stop.
Yeah, and this is generating this hysteria is self-perpetuating, and
Yes.
it's spiraling out of control.
Yes.
It started with like, oh, we support Ukraine, but now it's just you know, and it's dangerous for the Europeans. That's the
Yes.
thing that I find remarkable, and I don't see where this ends. And I think that they're going to face reality, and it's going to hit them very, very hard.
Yes.
But yeah, the thing that I have to go back to is the irreality of the Western the Western idea of what's going on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Look, it seems, and again, I'm not a military man, but the amount of territory that they have gained in the last 4 days and the speed and effectiveness of capturing the country so far, and how it has been achieved with so little damage to the country, because it is extreme little damage.
Yeah.
This is going to prove to be, it's seeming, and I don't make any value judgment as to the moral cause. I'm just talking strictly from a military standpoint. This will be seen in hindsight as one of the most brilliant invasions ever, because it's so fast and so it's been so gentle, and there's no other way to put it, because it's war and it's horrible, but the civilians have not been injured. There's been a huge outflow of civilians out of fear, and also of something that nobody is discussing, which is the forced conscription of men between 18 and 60, which I consider just despicable, and has caused widespread panic. I mean, really widespread panic, because now they are stopping buses and pulling people off the buses who look between 18 and 60, and some of these people are babies. I mean, you can tell that they might be 18, but mentally they're still children. I mean, and old men, men my age, in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s, who are in no shape to pick up a weapon, and they have no training for it. They are even going so far as to release hardened criminals from the prisons who have military experience. It seems that the Zelensky regime is hell-bent for leather on creating a lawless country. And I think it's outrageous, but nobody in Europe or the United States seems to recognize this. And they're just going along with this hysteria. And, Zelensky good, Putin bad. And everything Zelensky does is wonderful. And everything that Putin does makes, number one, no sense whatsoever, just happened out of the blue. And number two is by definition evil. I mean, I just want to hold my head.
Let's we have to do a hard stop. I know that. Just real quick, everybody. Yeah, real quick, because you have to run, Alexander, as well. All the questions that everybody sent, I'm going to gather them all up, and we'll answer them in a subsequent show within the next day or two. Real quick, Gonzalo, how are you feeling? Are you feeling nervous? Are you worried? Just real quick, what are your thoughts? And we'll sign out with your thoughts on this. How you're feeling right now?
On a personal level, I'm just bored, and the reason I burst into your show uninvited is because I was just bored and I need distraction, to tell you the truth. And I'm so sorry I'm inflicting this.
You're always invited. You're always invited, and we just don't know what you're doing all day. We don't know what you're doing all day. What are you? What? You're just hanging out in your hotel room, or?
Yes, and I can't focus enough to read a book, for instance, because I'm just too distracted, and I'm constantly worried when I send out messages to the people I love and I don't hear back from them right away. And I thank God that I'm actually able to message them. I can get the text message or the telegram. I can talk to them. I can.
All the internet is up, correct?
Yes,
everywhere.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
In Kharkov, it seems that the internet service provider conked out for reasons unknown, but the cell phone internet is working properly, and it's very cheap, and so usually the people just buy like a whole boatload of minutes, and so everything is fine in that regard. But if I didn't have that, I'd be going insane with worry. I mean, even just a couple of minutes wait to get a response. On Telegram, you get the double check mark when it tells you that they've read the message, right? And that for you is confirmation that, oh, they're okay. They got the message and they read it. They don't even have to respond to it. But when, minutes pass just 2 or 3 minutes, you start to panic. I have 2 small children in Kharkov, whom, of course, I adore more than life itself. And, it just breaks my heart to know that they're there. And I want to be around them, to smell them, to hold them and just watch them play. And I'm freaking out. I'll be perfectly honest.
We were saying, my wife and I, was because obviously we've just had children, that the idea of having children in a war zone is just absolutely would freak us out. So you have my every complete.
I'm not going to lie, and emotionally it's been very grinding, because if it were me on my own, no problem. I mean, I can handle myself, I mean, I'm not trying to be like, oh, like I'm so cool, but I'm like a little cockroach, I can scurry away and I'll be fine, but my children, they're my little bunnies, and so it frightens me very much for them. And I think about them constantly, and it's very demoralizing, quite frankly. And so what I have to do is just try to talk about stupid armies and tactics and geopolitics, and focus on the Federal Reserve. What are they doing at the Federal Reserve? That's the only thing that gets me through, to tell you the truth. Obsessing about nonsense like that, because if I stop down and start to think about things that are really serious, like the people that you love, like your family, your children, then I start to get a little bit insane, to tell you the truth. But I count myself extraordinarily lucky of both where I am right now, and the fact that I know that my children are safe and sound, and I talk to them and I see them, and I know they are in a location such that they're under no threat of any kind of violence from any side. So that's a great relief.
Right. On that note, we will leave it there.
And thank you again, Gonzalo.
Thank you again for joining. Thank you to everyone that joined us on this stream. I saw Alan Watson in there. Real quick shout out to Alan for moderating, and all the questions to our locals group. Thank you, our locals. All the questions, we are going to answer them, everybody. Thank you for those questions, and we'll get a video out to everybody really, really soon. Take care.
Take care.